I'm back. Well, what have we got today? Well, I've got something that's going to shock some people, but we'll get into that later. Only by watching the video are you going to actually learn something. Yeah, probably. Some people might know what I'm going to say, but I think the majority won't because it would have been all over the internet, and it isn't. Yeah, so what's it about? Well, today we're looking at the MOOER GE300, and I'm reliably informed that it's called a MOOER, not a MOOER or a MOOER. Yeah, so here it is, and you can see some of the more recent products that I've been reviewing, including this one. Yeah, the GT1000 core. It's not a bad device for the money, but there's something lacking with that. That's that one out of the way. Get over there. And then we've got the Scary Pod Go. Well, we can throw that over there straight away as well. But there's something that's unique about this one that isn't in that one, and it definitely isn't in that one, and for that matter, it isn't in one or two others, such as the GT1000 reel pedal. What it's all about today is this product here, for the price you can buy it for, which isn't that expensive anymore. I think this one was about, I think £540 or 49, 549, something like that. A far cry from the £1,000 or £1,100 that you could pay for something, well, that's very similar. Okay, well, as you might know, this is a inside and out video. This is a video that shows you not only what the pedal can do, not only the software that you can use with it, not only the buttons you can press, but also what's going on inside. And for some people, you might think, oh, so what? Well, trust me, it matters. It matters for lots of reasons, but we'll cover all that later. For now, I'm going to whip this apart, I'm going to turn it over, whip the back off, and we're going to take a look inside. And yeah, straight away, you're going to be very surprised at what you see. Okay, well, as you can see, this thing's got all the, let's get this out of the way on the way through, the CE and the ROS compliance and all the rest with it. And yeah, that's all fair enough for me, but I want to get inside this, and it's held together with just 9 screws. So I'm going to remove the back now. Okay, well, there's the very first shot of the MOOER GE300, which I'm absolutely sure you've never seen before in your life, because if you had, it'd be all over the internet, and it's not all over the internet. Now, there's something that's very shocking about this product right from the off, and you will be shocked. I'm pretty sure that most people do not know this. Remember back in the day, just a few years ago, not that long ago, when the AXFX2 was floating around. You remember it, don't you? I'm sure you do. And it had got dual shark processors, and they were telling me that they were $350 to $500 a processor, and that's how he ended up at $2,000 plus as a cost of an AXFX2. That's what they said. Well, be shocked. That was never really the case. How do I know that? Well, it's pretty obvious. I tell you what, let's just go and have a look at this £550 or $700 product that does a huge amount of things. Let's go a bit closer and take a look at what's inside. Okay, without getting too mad on this, I'm talking about this little board here. This board is set to one side of the unit, and it actually pushes on, and it's got all the main processor on it. Oh, sorry, main processors. Well, what do you mean, Tony? Well, what I mean is, there's a Analog Devices Shark processor, you know, just very similar to the one that was in the AXFX2. And there's another Shark processor. Oh, guess what? Very similar to the first one. Yeah, in fact, they're probably the same. And you know what? Dual process product, the MOOER GE300, for less than $700. Now listen, I'm absolutely confident that most people don't know that, didn't know that, and if I hadn't have made this video, you never would have. But let's be serious for a moment. This makes this unit pretty much almost unique at this price point, or anything this side of $1,000 or more, $1,200 maybe. You know, when you get higher up in the line 6 stuff like the Helix, well, that's another story. But the line 6 Helix and a lot of those products above it certainly cost, you know, they're very expensive products. Whereas this has been made, no expense spared from what I can see. The quality of this product, well, as you can even see on screen yourself, is exceptional. And what I like about it is this. I just reviewed the line 6 Pod Go that I threw across the floor not very long ago. You saw it. And I show you inside, and inside a Pod Go, for its £400, bear that in mind, it is cheaper. But it had one of these and one of these, so it had one memory come whatever and one Shark chip, which, you know, it's down to a price, and I can understand that. And that's one of the reasons it was so limited in the fact that you could only actually change the types of 4 of the devices across the screen, which is a bit limiting in my view. Well, actually it's very limiting. This one's different, but we'll come to that later. I want to get this hardware covered. Let's move along a bit and see what some of the other things we've got floating around on this device. Now, I'm not going to go to the nth degree, as sometimes I do, especially when the products are expensive. I'm just going to give you a general run across here, and you can see the quality of this stuff. It's very, very high quality. No ifs or buts, no maybes. In fact, I'll rate this as higher quality as of any product that I've looked at any price, and that includes Helix and all the rest of them, and Fractal Audio, I dare say. So the quality's there, there's no skimping of that, no matter what. You can see it yourself. Now this up here is in the sort of area of where the screen is. You can see that connector underneath that connects the screen to the rest of the system. And we've got power in over here with the on and off and the rest of it. Got a few chips. There's quite a lot of them anyway, but I want to draw your attention to down there a little bit, down a little bit lower. Because down here, although it doesn't look like it, there's 2 separate little boards, this top one and this bottom one. The bottom one actually reads Gen 300 foot down VO3, version 3. And this one at the top is G300 foot up VO2. So separate little boards that you could repair relatively easily, I guess, if you had to. You might be able to buy them as spares, but who knows? Like I said with the Pod Go, and well, actually with lots of other products like the GT1000 and the Core and the rest of them, whether you can buy these boards, these separate boards, is another story. Okay, so that's an overall view of the inside of the MOOER GE300, and I am absolutely bowled over with this one, guys. This is a product that isn't half a job, and it's for a low price. You know, you take £550 or sort of $700, give or take, you'd be very hard pressed to find products that have got all this technology in for this money. I'm going to box it back up and let's go back up top. Well, my guess is you'll be as shocked as I was at looking at this device and finding that it's a twin processor, a twin analog device's Shark processor. Okay, so what we're going to do now is we're going to take a look along the back here, see what's cooking there, before we move on, have a quick overview at the front. Then we'll get down to the software and the rest of it, and then later you'll get some playing, some sounds, some presets, some this, some that, and I'll even try and, well, I'm sure I will be able to do a tone capture, maybe on one of my better amps, or maybe on one of the best amps I've got. Who knows? Who knows what will happen by the time we get to there. In any case, this is to me, this is a really great product to review. Now, it's not brand new either. You know, it's a year or so old, maybe a little bit longer, but that doesn't matter. There's nothing at this price that's better, specified at least, and there's probably nothing that sounds better either. Okay, well here we are round the back, and I want to draw your attention first of all to this tiny little connector here, which is a 1/8 of an inch auxiliary in, and it's a stereo in, so put your 3.5mm jacks in there for your auxiliary in. Next thing up, we've got basically the Expression 2 pedal socket, just in case you didn't know it was that. You can also use it as an external switch for switching your amp maybe, or switching something else. All very useful. Next one's a guitar in, but it might not be a guitar that you're putting in. It could be anything really. But what we've got is we've got a line level and a guitar level. This little switch here looks after the guitar level. Next up, we've got a send and a return. There's the return, those two. And here's the send, these two. So if it's mono, you'd use the left mono to send and the right mono for return. If it's stereo, there's your sends, left and right, and there's your return, left and right. All very nice and all very simple really. Next to that, we've got some headphones. There they are, that's where you put them. And next to that is the XLR outs, and again it's stereo, left mono, this one, or left and right if you're using them both. Now if you look at this little bit here, you've got a ground lift, and it's currently set up for lift, up for lift, down for ground. Also importantly on this unit, we've got a MIDI section, so we've got a MIDI in and a MIDI out or MIDI through, depending on the way you set it up, I guess. But it's always nice to have that. Some pedals don't even have it. I mean, believe me. This one's appears to be pretty full blown, by the way, and from the the manual that I've seen. Now this USB can be used for recording, streaming the audio out, or it can be used with the software, for updating the firmware or editing the presets and so on and so forth. Most people know what that is. It's a type B. Next up, welcome in fact, is an on-off switch, and I know that was also on the Pod Go, but I've seen other units that don't actually have an on and off. If I remember right, the GT1000 Core didn't actually have an on and off. Well, that could be wrong. I've been asleep since then. Importantly, next is the input power, and it says here DC in 9 volts, 2 amp minimum, and the center is negative. However, I do know that they recommend a 3 amp power supply, and this thing on the ends for wrapping your cord around. Okay, well I want to quickly turn this on and draw your attention to something. Here it goes, version 1.1.0. They're currently on version 3.0.1. So this will be getting a bit of an upgrade on the firmware when we get into the software a bit later on. Okay, well what you'll find with this unit, unlike most of them, like the one I'm looking at there, the Pod Go, you can faff around with it on the floor, but to be honest, on the Pod Go, it's far easier to open up that software and, do a bit of editing. The GT1000 I thought was pretty much similar to that as well. The software plays a big role often in a lot of these processors, and some of them go to extremes without mentioning names. This one, on the other hand, well, it's got software. The software can do a lot of stuff, but it's not quite as good, if you want the truth, as using this unit right hands-on, which in my way of thinking is probably a good idea. If you don't want to be sitting there faffing around on a computer for months on end on some gear, well, this makes things easier. Yeah, by a long way. It's a very simple device, but complex. It's simple in the respect that you just take one look at it, and often you can really see where you're set up. You can see what you're playing. Now, a lot of units aren't quite the same as that. You can't see what this is, and you can't, well, sort of you can, and it's usually stuck on the screen, but on this one you can even see if there's an EQ turned on, or an FX loop or a compression or a wah or whatever. So I just wanted to cover that at this stage before we go diving back in to the top. So maybe that's what we'll do next. I'll get the PC out, the laptop, and we'll do a firmware update, show you how easy that is or hard. I've never done it either. But the other thing is, you do want to print out the manual. The only thing is, this one's about, well, it's 100 odd pages. It's a pretty big manual, but it's not that complex. To be honest, what you find in this manual is, you know, page after page of MIDI information, which it can be important, of course. But the overall basics of this thing, it's not as complex as you might think. And do remember that, well, it's not essential that you print this out. My advice always is for you to print it out, and then you've got a reference, well, probably for some time. So let's have a look. Run the program. Update ready to update. Can't say more than that, can you? Nothing on the screen here, by the way. Loads of it on the screen here. So I'm going to start. Confirm it. All settings will be erased after the update. Confirm you have backed up your settings before continuing. Well, I haven't, but to tell you the truth, I haven't actually done anything yet. But I could back them up. I'm going to say confirm and update. And as you see on the screen, there it goes. It's a bit slow and protracted, really. Oh, look, flashing lights. You don't see them all, but let me show you. That's what's going on while the update is happening. Now I might shorten this a little bit. What's off-putting a little bit is there's nothing on that screen. Update error, nice. Okay, I've brought it back again because the first update failed with an error. There's no reason for it to fail, but it did. 95%. Well, you're going to see what's going to come up on here. 97, 98, 99, 100%. Update successful, it says here. Well, I hope that that little escapade of doing the firmware upgrade teaches you some sort of lesson, really, because what you do want to consider is that if it all goes wrong, there's half a chance that you could have a major problem with the pedal. I don't really know the answer whether this can survive something like that, but in my case it did. But in your case, would it? And even more scarily, if you're new to this sort of thing, which a lot of guys are, don't assume that everybody knows everything, because they don't. Scarily, if you look in the manual, there are only 2 pages for a firmware upgrade. Not too much of a problem unless, well, you have a problem. Now I do want to chat a few minutes about this unit and some of the things about it and why it's different than most of the others. You know, the ones that you've heard of, the Kempers of this world, the XFX of this world, the even the Boss. Well, I know you'll name all the others, even the Pod Go that's down on the floor there. They're all so-so, and they all have one thing in common, and that is an editor that might be, well, for most people it's sort of average, but for some people it might be difficult. And for the case of the XFX, that can be a complex piece of software. Whereas the others, well, they're slightly more easier to use. Well, what about this one? This is why we're here. Well, I can tell you, I've got one. Oh, and by the way, I actually bought this. Nobody's given it to me or loaned it to me. It's actually one I purchased with money out of my pocket. So, oh, is this a fair review? It's exactly what you get and what you don't get. But let's talk about this more. This is one of the first pedals, and I haven't checked the other MOOER pedals out, but this is one of the first pedals where I can honestly say that you can easily, and I mean relatively easily actually edit everything right from the unit itself. Now I can hear 1,000 people out there telling me that, you know, the GT1000 core is fabulous and so is the GT1000 and oh, the Kemper's great and all the rest of it. They're all so great that they need a pretty, well, I won't say complex editor, but it's more complex by a long way than what this one is, I think. So for me, this actually is a refreshing change compared to all the myriad of other pedals that I've seen to date, and I've been looking at them, believe it or not, since 2011. That's 10 years of looking at pedals. This is the first one that I can honestly say, well, guys could get on with this. It's a bit like using a tube amp or using an Axe FX3. The difference is astonishing, both in tone and in the usage of. You can set an amp up in 20 seconds. So the point is, this is a great unit if you're a hands-on guy and you don't be messing around with these bloody things, computers, morning, noon and night. This is great. Yeah, you can even, well, you can do most stuff with it. And that's, at this stage in the review, I just wanted to cover that because when we're looking at this, which is coming up next, in fact, there are a huge amount of things that we can do right from the screen. It doesn't have all the fanciest graphics in the world, and you know what, it doesn't need them. It can sound really good, and yeah, we'll come back to the sounds of course later on. So what I'm going to do right now, this point, is zoom in and we're going to run through you know, the unit itself, the GE300, and see how it goes. And I'm sure you're going to like it. I think it's one of the better ones. Oh, there was one thing I wanted to cover. When I found these in the box, I thought these were something I thought they were mints. Yeah, pull these things out and you're supposed to stick them on the end of the pedal for some obscure reason. Unbelievable. Every other pedal I've ever seen works on these sort of things, and this one's got to have these cheap and nasty looking pieces of plastic that I think you've got to be a bit distorted to even bother use. What will I be doing with mine? Well, I'll be putting them back in there, sealing them up, and throwing them over there. So let's get down to the pedal. Well, as you're aware, this little unit here has got version 3.01 firmware in it because you saw me upgrade it. And what does 3.01 firmware offer us? Well, it's got a load of new stuff in it, as well as all the regular stuff that's in this unit, which is extensive. You've got some other things like this. You've got a new intelligent harmony effect, and that's for the FXA module, which is there. You can see it. You can place the harmony effects after the distortion of the overdrive, which gives you a more distinctive and clear tone. It says here, the effect's designed for single note melodic lines. Well, that sounds like a plan. We've also got a 60s vibe effect, and that's on FXB, which is a little bit further around somewhere there. See? Yeah, maximum length of amp and cab names have been increased to 31 characters. If the file name's longer than 18 characters, the name of the current file will be shown as a rolling title from left to right, so that's nice. Users can customise the name of the control foot switches with a maximum of 6 characters for each name. So yeah, that's interesting too. 6 characters. Bit of a limitation, but you can't have everything, can you? The name of the currently selected preset shown while accessing the save menu. Well, yeah, I'm not going to save it right now, you'll see that later. Additional access options for the looper and tuner. Users can choose between pressing and holding both foot switches simultaneously, or simply pressing both foot switches simultaneously. Yeah, well that sounds like fun, and that's straight out the book. They fixed a bug also related to the linear or exponential modes of the volume expression pedal to ensure this function works as intended. Yeah, so it doesn't cover that many more things, but we were on version 1 of this, and I can assure you that the difference between version 1 and version 3.01 is, well, quite substantial. I'll just point out some of the features that this thing's got, because we haven't really covered any of that yet, and then I can get that out the way and I don't have to talk about it again. So this is all about the main features of the unit. We've got 108 high quality amp models that utilise Moore's non-linear digital amp modelling technology from the Preamp series and 431R based factory speaker cab models to get the same dynamics feel of a real tube amp. That's what they promise. It supports what they call GNR amp and GIR cab files based on MNRS Engine 2, which I think is their proprietary thing. It might not be. It's got 20 user slots to load in your favourite third-party IR files, and those are with up to 2048 sample points. Tri-voice polyphonic synthesizer up here. This includes an oscillator, wave shape, pitch, filters and arpeggiators for each voice. It will transform your guitar into an electronic synth without the need for special pickups or instrument mods or anything. You just basically plug in and sound like a synth. Well, it's rather like some of the Roland stuff I've reviewed over the years, and if you go and look at my channel, you'll see some of them reviews. All very interesting they are. This thing down here called tone capture. Now, tone capture amp mode, it allows you to sample and capture your real-life amplifier to create brand new digital amp models. Guitar mode allows you to capture the EQ characteristics of your instrument. Cab mode lets you sample speaker cabinets to create your own IR files. Now in this thing, you can believe this or not, there's 164 high quality effects that cover all the bases from your favourite stomp boxes, plugins, studio rack units and so on and so forth. It's even got a noise pedal to shut you up. A programmable stereo FX loop with optional signal chain routing for easy integration of your favourite effects and ultimate flexibility for 4-cable method and stereo amp setups. Stereo outputs, 1/4 inch and XLR with independent signal chain routing. Flexibility to send different parts of your virtual rig to different devices. Now that's, again, it's interesting stuff. I'm not going to go to the nth degree front to back on this thing because I'd be here for a month. There's MIDI in, MIDI out and through with easy mapping and external control switch to control your other pedals and amps. Programmable foot switches with user selectable LEDs, that's the colours, and assignable functions, allowing complete user customization of the control scheme. And it is quite extensive, as you will see as we move forward. It's intuitive and simple. UI based on the GE300 user's experience makes for fast and easy setup of presets, and trust me, it can be really easy to use without the software. Spend more time playing and less time scrolling through endless menus, and they've said it and I say it too. This direct low latency USB audio lets the GE300 double up as a digital audio interface and become a one-stop shop solution for recording guitar. Now, one of the features on the GE300 is it's got a 30-minute stereo loop with undo, redo, direct dubbing, reverse plus half-time effects. Looper sessions can be stored and backed up for import and export of audio files and so on and so forth. You recall that new song idea you add anytime. You know, very useful. A lot of guys use loopers. I don't, as it happens, but it's got its place. There's also a high precision programmable tuner which will make sure you're in tune when you're playing. You don't want to sound like me, do you? One of the things I like about this unit is these three separate volumes. You've got an output master, you've got an XLR master, and you've got a headphone master, and that really is very useful. There aren't so many devices with that's included. Okay, so what I'm going to do is just mention the physical hardware, and then we can get back to this panel and start having a look a bit closer. This is the master section, like I said. And it's really useful because of these three separate outputs. Really useful. Don't see that very often. We've got a LED screen, which is full colour. Looks high resolution to me. And by the way, this one does still have its screen protector on it. So if you think it's a bit blurry, well, it's not blurry. It's just that I haven't taken the protector off. We've got these knobs here. And this is very common on so much gear. The Helix and, you know, the Line 6 stuff seems to always have this sort of stuff. We've got a select knob, and this you can rotate and press it to make selections within this. You can see things change. A left and a right, if you look down the bottom, that's movable. All nice, simple. Notice it's simple. It's the most important thing. We've got expression 1 and expression 2, which shows you which of these foot pedals is an external one or this one, depending on what you want to do. Expression 1's a built-in one here. Okay, and then we move on to this little section of buttons across the top here. And this is called the screen menus. Well, what have we got? We've got one for display. This toggles between the foot switch view and the signal chain on the home screen. We've then got what's called GLB EQ, which is global EQ settings menu. We've got a control which configures, assigns and customizes the switch settings. We've got one for system, global system settings. We've got one to save whatever it is we've been doing, save the presets. And we've got EXP, which is expression 1 and expression settings and calibration for this thing, and the external one. We've obviously got the expression pedal, which I've already talked about. So on this control 1 to 4, you can see them here. Basically, you've got two modes. In foot switch mode 1, we can assign functions via the control button. But in foot switch mode 2, we can assign the functions via the control button and select presets from the top column after up or down. This thing. And then at the bottom here, we've got A, B, C and D, if you can see them. So again, in foot switch mode 1, the ABCD selects the corresponding preset. Pretty obvious. But in mode 2, you can assign functions via the control button and again selects preset from the bottom column. So A plus B is a tuner, if you can see it. That's what it says on the screen. And B plus C is the looper. Over at this side, we've got an up and a down, which is really for choosing preset banks. You can see the banks. And one of the most important things on here, well, they're all important, but you know what I mean, is the effect block, and it's this across here. So this shows you all of the different effects that you can have, basically. If you press one, you're editing that effects block edit screen, basically. So, and if we want to get back to display, we always choose display. But if I wanted the wah, there's the wah. We'll come back to these later. Come back to display. If I wanted the overdrive, you can see how easy it is. In fact, it reminds me of the GT100. Now there's one. I did a review of that some years ago. So, like I said, very important feature, most important. And what I love about it is it's showing you absolutely right away, even across the floor, what's turned on and what isn't turned on. It's just a shame you can't read some of this text when you're under the lights. And a real good example is, can anybody actually read tuner there? You might on the big screen, but you certainly won't if you've got lights blasting on it. Now I've already covered round the back all this stuff across the top. There are little logos across here to show you what each one is, which I can read them. Maybe you can see them at that end at least, maybe across here. There are bright lights in here, so don't, knock it too much. And believe it or not, that is the hardware and its features. And what we're going to do is we're going to move on to the home display and start looking at what we've got in there, and then looking at the effects and the rest of it. It's a real nice, simple but very, very powerful processing system. And bear in mind, it's a dual processor device, which I'm absolutely sure most people didn't know. Now, by unbelievable for the money, I remember the days when the AxeFX boys were telling me that the processors were $500 each. Well, that'd make this about $1,500 by their count. Of course, they've moved on to the cheaper one now at $70, but that's another story. I don't doubt that these processors in here are not that expensive. They never were. But the fact is, you've got two of them, just like a Helix. Okay, well, this is the screen that you see, and it covers a multitude of things. But let's just take a quick look at what we've got here. Well, it's got two main home displays, foot switch display and signal chain display. We're in signal chain display at the moment, as you can see. It's rather like, if you think back, it's rather like the Pod Go or the GT1000 or any one of a multitude of different units. Yeah, very interesting stuff. You can press the display button, which is just off camera. I'll press that now, and you'll see that it'll hop between what they call foot switch mode, like I said, and signal chain. So we can just hop through with the display button, and when display's lit, you get this one, the foot switch, and when it's not, you get the chain. And of course, the foot switch display's really useful if you're playing, if you're out gigging and things like that. You can see what's going on, you can see what's on these pedals, and you can see what's on these pedals. So let's cover a few features of what we've got on this screen right now. Up here on the left, you can see output. That's the output level. And you've got an input level also, of course. You can see it there. Nothing to shout home about, right? And that displays the current signal level that's being received through the input, and that's adjustable from the system input. We've got CPU usage also, which is just about down there, if you can see it. It says here 44% when it's stationary. Well, that displays how many processing resources are being used in the current preset. If the number reaches 100%, the GE will automatically turn off the last module you turned on. Yes, so in effect, it stops you overloading the dual processors in this unit. If we move further across, if you look at this here, we've got expression 1 and expression 2. Now, expression 1 displays the current functions assigned to expression 1, pretty obvious. And expression 2 displays the current functions assigned to expression 2, which we don't have because it's an external one. Nothing wrong with that. We've got this section here, you see it. This is a preset number and preset name. There's its number and there's its name. And you can set this, well, basically to, I think it was 30 characters they said, wasn't it? Something like that. You can change presets by using the A, B, C and D down below. Those foot switches, or you can do it by rotating the select control knob. Displayed number is the bank, and we can do that there. The knob to my right. Now if I was to press the bank up or the bank down, you can see in here what the banks are set to. I'll carry on up, carry on down, and I'm going to go back and stay with Kali Studio for now, but there's piles of them. I think it goes to 30 something, but we'll see that a bit later. And we've got down at the bottom those A, B, C's and D's. If I choose A, we get A. I choose B, we get B. You can see them across here, which ones I'm choosing. And you can also note, if you look up here on this first row, you'll see that things are changing basically for each preset, as they would. But if I was to whip to the control buttons on this row here, but actually press control 1, that turns it on. And I can assign different things to these pedals, as you will see later on. Well, let's flip across to the signal chain. All you do is press the display button, and here's the signal chain screen. Now it's got customizable signal chain. In this display, you can edit the order of your effects, your blocks, and rearrange the send and return, XLR out and master output, so on and so forth. Now in this little section, this signal chain display, you look carefully, you can see like a little triangle above this compressor. Let's show you on this one. If I go across to the select button, press that, you can see that the little triangle's now turned red. I hope you can see that, I think you can. And if I want to move the compressor to somewhere else, I just grab the select button, move it, and put it back down, and now it's there instead of there. But I can put it back to where it was just as easy as I moved it in the first place. There's just one thing to note. You can't move the synth, so if I go to the synth and I press it, I can press it but nothing happens. Just bear that in mind, won't you? Synth's always number one. However, it is possible to adjust the synth parameter effect out to a particular port. That allows you to edit the synth sound output position of the signal chain in parallel. So while that always sits there, it can be positioned in other places, or the output can. Now the signal chain itself, you can see it starts here, and that's basically your guitar input or your instrument input, because it doesn't have to be a guitar on this unit. Do bear that in mind, won't you guys? We all look at it as a guitar input device, but no, it isn't. Anyway, there it is, the signal chain. This is similar to patch cables. If you see it, it comes across. Most guys have seen this sort of thing, and it's on virtually every bloody effects unit that there is today, I think. Anyway, it goes across there, down here, and across here, and then out. Now what you can't do, if you go and have a look at a Helix, for example, you can add extra rows and things like that of this effects chain. Now you can't do that on this unit, so the Helix clearly has advantages, so does the XFX and all the rest of it. But of course they're all far more expensive than this. So while it can't add extra bits, I mean, it's not rocket science to understand, is it either? Now notice down at the bottom of the screen, if we're on a device, in this case a compressor, we've got a number of parameters, the effects block parameters, that we can edit them from those 5 knobs that we looked at earlier on, 1 to 5. And if I was just grab number 1, you can see that there it is moving, and so on and so forth. It's so easy to use. I mean, that's the thing about it. If there are any more parameters to this pedal, to this device we've chosen, if I press those right arrows, you would see them. So let me whip along to something where there might be more. You can see I've moved to the amp, and you can see there's some yellow right arrows there. So if I hit the right arrow, I get another row of parameters, and I can go back because there's a left one there. You see that? It's all so easy. I don't know. What I do want to talk about is you can just about see it right over at that end. That's basically the output right there. See it, can't you? And there's another effect there. Well, actually that's the loop. That's your send and return there. But this one at the end, basically the XLR out, the output and the effects loop, send and return, can be moved within the signal chain. So you can move certain things. Press and hold the select control to toggle. Let me show you. Okay, if I want to change the output, this little thing down here, all I need to do is to hold the select down for more than 1.5 seconds, and you can see it's flipped across to this output. Now on this output I can choose between XLR out, if it's an XLR icon, an output icon, which is a triangle by itself. There's an effects loop send, which is like a sort of drawn triangle, and then a return icon, which is an effects loop return, which is sort of exactly the opposite. So I do want to show you this really closer if I can. I'm not going to move anything. So you can see option 1 there. If I turn this, there's option 2, and you look down at these send and returns, you'll see option 3 send and option 4 is return. So we've got all the parameters down below. So you can see that they change dependent on what you're on, basically. Now the thing is about this device, we've already said we've got 2 modes, haven't we? And the modes are settable, or you have the choice of mode 1 or mode 2. And mode 1 is the default foot switch mode. It's designed to give a good balance between preset selection and access to customized control functions. Foot switches, should I say. So that's this one. But the second one is mode 2. Mode 2 is designed for the user who wants instant access to more programmable control foot switches within each preset. It's great for controlling the 300 like a traditional pedal board. Let me go and switch that in now and I'll show you. So this is mode 1. And to get to mode 2, we press the system button and you're presented with this. But then you can go across here to the foot switch, if you see that. And if we choose that, we can have foot switch mode, press it, mode 1 or mode 2, which is self-explanatory if you can see the screen there. Yeah. I'm going to leave it in mode 1 and come back out of that. Actually, there is also a mode 3, which I wasn't aware of that, but I am now. And if you move to mode 3, you get 2 lots of A, B, C and D. So when it's in that mode 3, you can see here that you've actually got 8 presets. So each one of these becomes a different preset. So you know, if you're using it live, you could use that for 1,000 different things, I'm sure. I'm just going to show you the tuner as well while we're here. If I press A and B buttons, we get a tuner. We can mute it. We can set the exact tone, which is pretty standard stuff, really. Come back out of that, and we've got a looper if we press C and D. And there it is. I'm not going to spend time on that. Okay, I want to move along a bit further now, and I'm moving along to the control button, which is the third one on the top row. And what you can do in here, you can assign various functions to any given foot switch, which is pretty interesting, really. There's a lot you can do. I don't intend to sit here programming foot switches. It's never been my intention, but it basically allows users to completely customize the layout and function of the foot switches depending on which foot switch mode is selected. You can get instant access to either the 4 or the 8 control foot switches, that's mode 1 or mode 2 if you remember, within each preset. We can change the switch type between latching or momentary. We can change the LED colour. We can control foot switches set to control various different functions like sub patches, on or off, tap tempo, tuner, looper, enter looper, mute, external control, and so on and so forth. There is a lot of features that you can customize if that's what is your bag. Now I did mention there is an external control. That switch, the external control amp channel function only supports traditional dual channel amps. I mean, if you've got a Road King or something, it won't do it. For detailed information, check with the amplifier maker and notice in a sub-patch, on and off, mute and external control function, the foot switch will change the brightness to indicate the current situation. By the way, another thing about the control switches, something I didn't mention, is you can rename the control foot switch. Each control foot switch has a default display name based on its assigned functions. You can see them there. You can rename the foot switch display name. You can press the control button to enter the control menu, rotate the select knob, and so on and so forth. I'm not running through it, it's just a feature. But once you've saved it and you've got your control button called whatever you want it. That's simple. Now I've already talked about these IOs on the back and what you can do with them. You've got XLRs, you can push it straight to an amp, you can push it to a desk, you've got streaming audio out, all sorts of things. Far too much than me sitting here just rambling on about it, but if you can think about it, with this device you can do it. And don't forget that the 4 cable method does work surprisingly well with this unit, and I'm sure that you will not be disappointed in the overall quality of what you can achieve with that. Okay, well, we're moving on now to this section of the effects box, all these things, and you've got these lights across the bottom, which I talked about before, the effects box and what's turned on and what isn't. All very good. All of the different effects algorithms and amp models in the 300 are grouped into categories called effects blocks. You can see them. The GE300's got 15 effects blocks in total, and each effects block has dedicated easy access buttons right on the front panel. These things across here. Now, when we're talking about effects blocks, remember the GT1000 core had 24 effects blocks, so it's pretty powerful, and you could run all of those at once. Well, this has got these 15, and you can run these all at once too. But on the poor old Pod Go, I think there was about 10 or 12, which was less, and you couldn't really choose everything like you can on this one. So that was one of the features that was a little bit disappointing on the Pod Go, I have to say. So let's just quickly take a look at what we've got by way of choices. We've got synth, which is a synth engine. If you hit it, you can start getting this sort of stuff. And you can move across screen after screen, which is all nice. We'll go back to it. Now that synth, that's not any old synth. That's a tri-voice polyphonic synthesizer. So very powerful device actually. If you're into synths, you're going to enjoy this. And if you're not into synths, well, maybe by the time you've used this, I can tell you now, you probably will be. Then we've got a compressor. Then we've got wah-wah. So the FXA is modulation, EQ, pitch, delay, filters, overdrive and boost. So you can have any one of them under that one. Next one we got is basically distortion or overdrive. So we've got distortion, overdrive, fuzz and boost stomp boxes. Next one's the amp. Well, it's pretty obvious what that one is. Then we've got a cab, speaker cab. We've moved down to here. The noise gates and noise suppressors, pretty powerful on this. The tone cap is tone capture. So that's what we come back to when we want to capture an amp or something else, a speaker cab, or you can capture actually even an effects pedal, believe it or not. We've got an equalizer, or a number of. We've got FXB, which again is modulation, EQ, pitch, delay, filters. Then we've got the FX loop. Don't forget that little tiny thing there, where you can set the input and the output. We've got a delay. The delay stomp boxes and rack units, there's a lot of them in there, as you'll see. Then we've got reverb, and then we've got a volume pedal down at this end. But you can move it to anywhere you want, but that's where it sits by default. Okay, so let's imagine we want to take a look at one of these. There's the compressor. Well, that's turned on, and if I hit the comp button, you can see you're presented with basically the parameters for the compressor. Now, this compressor is very simple, but you can actually choose different compressors. You can see there. Just got a few of them in here. I'm going to leave it where it was. Now, we've also got an output, if you notice that. And many of the effects blocks have got a parameter called output like that. This controls the overall output volume level of the effects block. Turning this down or up affects the entire signal level after the block. So if what I'm saying is, if this is early on in the chain, this will affect the entire volume all the way through the chain. So later it is less, well, it doesn't, not less effect, but different effect. It can be used basically to compensate for perceived volume drop or boost of a particular effect when the effect block's turned on. So it's sitting at 0 dB, and what else did you expect? If I was to move across to FXA, what have we got in there? Let's press the FXA button. It's currently a 1 to 3 band EQ, slow gear, octave phaser, step phaser, loads of them. Yeah, I mean, what I would say about this is, if you think about it, do you really want it to be to the nth degree hyper graphical and the rest of it? Even the software doesn't really present it in quite the same way as maybe the Pod Go did, for example. That had loads of great graphics and the rest of it, but not quite as powerful as this device, I must say. Now, I could harp on all day about the synth. We can take a quick look at it. And we've got lots and lots of parameters. I don't intend to go all the way through them, spending hours on them. But you can see there's lots to go at, and I'm sure you'll enjoy yourself when you're doing all that stuff. Now, I did find a diagram of the synth signal path, and you'll probably see that on the screen now, or something like it. And you can see from the diagram, the synth engine has got 3 independent voices with their own parameters for waveform, pitch, attack, level, filter and arpeggiator. Signal path from the instrument input is split and routed directly to the front of each synth voice, so they remain completely parallel and independent from one another, basically. The through dry signal can also be mixed parallel to the entire synth effect block, so you can opt for synth only or mix it with your guitar signal even. Now, moving along to the compressor, I can tell you there's 10 basic separate compressors here. There's an S comp, a red comp, yellow comp, blue comp, boost comp, Al Studio comp, deluxe comp, 3-band comp, limit and blood comp. Yeah, described in the manual as what they really are. For example, the Al Studio comp is a vintage analog studio compressor. The limit is 2-knob compression limiter, and the blood comp is a 3-knob stomp box compressor with blend control. So there. All I can say about the compressors is there is a huge amount of parameters that you can choose to adjust it to what you need, basically. And you can see I moved along to the wah. We've got also 10 wahs, which is we've got a modelled after the GCB95, modelled after a modern 535Q, modelled after a hand-wired 60s classic with halo inductor, modelled after a vintage voice remake, custom modern wah, studio rack style, tailor your perfect wah, modulated automatic sweeping wah, dynamic envelope filter auto wah, talking wah algorithm from the MOOER Red Kid, and talking wah algorithm from the MOOER Red Kid. You've got an R and an O for that. Which is weird. You've got a pile of parameters for the wahs, and you've got a pile of parameters for auto wah too. Now, for the FXA and FXB, I've got at least 40 different options, FXA and FXB. These have got multiple different effect types, including modulation, EQ, pitch, delay, filters. FXA also has extra overdrives and boosters for stacking with the overdrive or distortion module. So there. But there is a lot of them, and they're all well known. For all of the effect blocks that you could choose for the FXA and FXB, you've also got loads of FX parameters to change if you want to, or you could go with the ones as standard. For this one here, this distortion and overdrive, we've got 31 different gain-based stomp box effects, including distortions, overdrives, fuzzies and boosters. Each one has been fastidiously modelled, it says here, after a real-life pedal using similar techniques that they employ to create their digital amplifier models. So, very flexible, loads of stuff, loads of choices, and of course you've got the parameters as well. But moving along, we're moving along to the amp, and I'm sure a lot of guys want to know what's going on there. Well, you can see there, it's got 108 digital amp models that utilise the more non-linear amp modelling technology. Unique to this company, I guess. Each model has been designed based on samples taken directly from real-life tube amps. And you know, don't forget you've got that tone capture that you can use to create your own. And there's something else we can talk about later. And they've got Fenders in here, Marshalls in here, Friedmans, Mesa Boogies. What else we got? Orange, Engel, EVH, PV, Diesel, Randall, Soldano, Jet City, Koch or Coach, Bruno, CAE, PRS Sir, VHT, Tone King, 2 Rock, High Watt, Black Star, 3 acoustic simulators, and that's about it. But there's a load of stuff on the amps. Moving along to the cab, there it is. This has got basically 43 preloaded speaker cab simulations, which are non-linear algorithms derived from impulse response samples of real-life speaker cabs. Each cab sim model has dual microphones with independent mic type, centre and distance parameters, plus progressive balance mix control. So it's quite a comprehensive sort of beast, if you will. Loads to go at, and there is loads to go at, but I'm not really worried in sitting here all day showing them to you. I'll read them to you and they might be on the screen. You've got Fender, Marshall, Engel, Mesa Boogie, Orange, Soldano, Dr. Z, Roland, Vox, High Watt, PV, Tone King, 2 Rock, EVH, Black Star, Diesel, Bruno, CAE, Diesel, Dr. Z. Any more? Yeah, Friedman, Matchless, Mesa again, Orange, PV, PRS, Randall, Sir, VHT, and more 1112 acoustic cabinet. And the last one is empty, which is a 3rd impulse response slot. So if you want to sit there all day sitting editing cabs, feel free. I tend not to do that, because do remember also that you can load up to 15, I think it is. I think it's 20 actually. So you've got a lot to go at, and you probably wouldn't want more than 20 IRs, no matter what anybody says. There is one company that's got thousands. Totally pointless. But on this cab, I do actually want to talk about the microphones that you can use. And you've got Shure SM57, SM7A, U47 Neumanns, U87, KM143, M147, KM184, Rode NT1, NT2, NTV, Sennheiser MD421, MD441, E906, E835, MXL 2001, MXL 2003, AKG 3000, C3000, C4000B, C414, D112, C535. Any more? That's enough to begin on with. And do remember, when we get to the software a bit later on, you can see more than you can see now, but it just shows you that you could actually just come in this and start actually editing enough to be working, and that's the important bit really. That's how I see this piece of hardware. Now on the noise gate here, noise gates can be, well, absolutely essential depending on the style of music you're playing, and if you're onto the metal stuff and the rest, well, they are basically very essential. Now, you've got 3 different noise gate models, which are ideal for getting rid of the unwanted noise or using a hard gate effect for tight, high gain rhythm playing, like I said. Very, very powerful these are, and they are very good as well. We've got number 1, which is called hard noise gate with maximum damping. The second one's called Intel Reducer, intelligent background noise suppressor, with an automatic attack, release and damping. And the third noise gate is a standard studio noise gate with detailed user controls. And don't forget, you've got all the parameters. If you want the parameters, you can sit faffing around, depending on which one it is. They're all different. Now the next one along is this tone cap, or tone capture, which is all very interesting stuff. Okay, well, when you're in this mode for this this tone capture, you can choose various different things here. Well, look at that one. If I press that, we can see at the moment it's set for learning guitar, but I can twizzle the select button around. Now it's learning amp and stomp. Any more? Learning IR. And that's back to learning guitar. In any case, when you're on learning guitar, I mean, it'll instantly transform the sound of your guitar using samples you created in tone capture. Guitar mode, that's what that's for. Sample and carry all your favourite guitars with you wherever you go. So it learns literally the guitar. So if you want a Les Paul, well, you can sample a Les Paul. If you want a Strat, you can sample a Strat, or a Tele, or whatever it is you're wanting to do. And of course, if we move on to the others, learning amp and stomp, This samples your favourite overdrives, distortions and amplifiers. And if we go to the third one, the IR, that will create your own speaker cabinet impulse responses, or IRs. Oh, very nice and simple. So basically you choose the one you want, choose where you want it to go, any one of these 50 that are in here. We've got, we can capture the target, the source, and we can make it active. In this section here we've got what they call the post-tone cap sections. These settings get unlocked once you've created a tone, preset that is. Use the parameters to tweak the tone to exactly what you're trying to achieve. We've got a low, a mid, a high and an output. The low with just the low, mids for mids, you get the idea. Output boosts or attenuates the output volume of the tone capture. That's pretty much like all of the outputs that we've seen. Use control knobs 1 to 4 over here to adjust them. Okay, so I just want to clarify one thing regarding the tone capture. There it is down the bottom. And what you need to do with the tone capture, something I didn't mention, is choose it with the select button and move it to the first item. Well, the first item actually is the second place because it can't go before the synth. And just place it there, because if you don't do that, actually it doesn't work too well because it's hearing all these other sounds and things like that. So that's your first thing to do with it. And of course, when we go into it, you've got target, source and active, and they're a bit confusing really, but let's leave it on guitar for a second. And if you think of it like this, the target is the one where you want the sound. So for example, you've got a Les Paul and a Strat. They're usually shown like that on other videos. And if you want your Les Paul to sound like a Strat, well, the target is actually the Les Paul. So you'd play your music as long across there, and then you'd get your Strat out, and then you'd hit button B and go through the source, and then put your Les Paul on and away you go. It sounds like a Strat. It's really that easy, and you can save everything like I've always said. So moving along the chain a bit further, we've got another EQ here, and this EQ's got 8 EQs, from simple amp style 3-band EQ, 5-band for heavy guitar. Anyway, let's put it this way, there's 8 of them, and I'm sure you'll enjoy yourself with them. FXB there is very similar to FXA. I'm not going to spend time on it, so I'll move along to the FX loop. Now remember, on this FX loop I've chosen the output there, and there's an input below it, and you can do that from the select switch. But the fact is that the FX loop can be used to integrate your favourite external effects, and don't forget you can do it in stereo on this unit, and preamps into the G300 signal chain, or to integrate the G300 into creative and complex rig setups, which you could. You could spend time doing all that. You could have 2 amps and all that sort of stuff. The send out and return, these 2 here, inputs can be rerouted within the signal chain, just like effects blocks. We can move them basically. Now to move this around, if you just hold this down, it'll turn red, turns red, and then I can sort of move it. As you can see, it moves around, and they're independent, by the way, also, which is interesting. But I'm not going to do anything with that for now. I'm just going to whip back to where I was, and thanks very much. Now we moved along to delay, as you can see right there, and once again, you know, I can choose it and we can go whipping around, having a look at, where am I? There we are, having a look at what's in there. But there's no real point in sitting there doing that. I'd sooner just tell you what's there. We've got 15 different pedals, digital, analog, dynamic, real, tape, modulated, reverse, dual delay, multi-tap delay, ping pong, vintage delay, galaxy delay, fuzz delay, crystal delay and trail. It's enough to keep you going for years, but don't spend too long on it, will you? Now we're on reverb. Chains are all nice and simple to follow. The reverb effects block, it's got 11 different reverb models, including everything you'd ever need from vintage spring, subtle studio and immersive ambience. And I know that they can get some of that from the Ocean Machine, which is an incredible device. If ever you check one of them out, I've got one, and the effects are absolutely incredible. So you can do a load of stuff with this. They go from room, hall, plate, filter reverb, reverse reverb, swell reverb, spring, modulated shimmer and distant reverb. Yeah, and a load of parameters once again to work through. Okay, last one here is the volume pedal. It's exactly what you'd expect it to be. The volume effects block allows you to add a volume pedal anywhere you please within the signal chain. You can move it around, no problem, just as we did with that other device earlier on. And when the volume effects block is activated, the expression pedal will double up as a volume pedal when the expression led is off. I'm not going to bore you anymore with expression pedals and volume pedals. You know what they are, don't you? Of course you do. Now we also have, it's already lit up there, if you can see it, and that's a global EQ, and that can be very useful. For example, if you're going around a circuit and you're playing different venues, certain venues will need a particular global EQ. And with this device here, with this thing here, it's all very nice. We can tailor this global EQ for different venues, which I think is pretty... So you've got output, XLR out, headphone out. They're all editable. And that's it. Pretty boring, but it's not boring if you have a problem. Yeah. Okay, trail function. I've got this delay here, and if we go and have a look at the delay, you can see up the top here it says trail off. So what we might want to do is just hit the select button. It's either on or it's off, and that's adjusted with button 1. Yeah, nice and easy. Now you can have the trail turned on or off overall, depending on the reverb or delay effects you choose. But you can also have it per patch, and it just depends which one you want. You just set it accordingly. I want to have a quick run through the system, which is chosen from here. So all we need to do is hit that, and then we've got these various things we can run through. We've got the input. If I hit that, all adjustable, all nice and easy. It's currently on 0 dB, but it's adjustable depending on what you're trying to do, like everything else. And you have a similar situation with the output. On this one, we've got the level, the effect, or the effect output mode, and center pan and things like that. I'm sure we can go through that. That's for the output, that's XLR, so you've only got the two. Moving along, we've got USB audio. Let's see what we've got in there. We've got audio mode normal. What have we got? We've got normal or reamp, which is nice, if that's what you use. I don't. And left out effect or direct, and so on and so forth. Let's go back. Now moving along to the MIDI. There's a fair bit of stuff in the MIDI, as there always is. Channel numbers, sync, CC reference, PC. I'm not going to show you because I can spend forever on MIDI. There is a lot of stuff you can go through. But you can MIDI in or MIDI out, take your pick. It's all get-atable, and that's the important thing. The foot switch I showed you earlier, so we can move along to tap. Yes, this is for the tap tempo, and we can choose either by preset or global, depending on what suits you. That's really the answer for that one. We can whiz across the screen, pretty obvious. How light do you want it? How dark do you want it? I don't know. Now the next one along is for parameter preference, and this depends on, if you set a parameter on a preset and you just move to the next one, you can either maintain the settings that you had or you can have them flip back to default. Yeah, depends what you want to do. Me personally, I would have thought maintaining them while you're messing around makes sense. And the last one in here is a reset, which I'm not going to go through. There's no real point, is there? Now coming along to the next one, pretty obvious. Save. I'm not going through all that. Everybody knows how to save, don't you? I'm sure you do. And there are your characters, and you can change them for whatever you want. How hard's that? Now there are some other things that you can do with this unit, like relating to expression pedals and things like that. GE300 parameters can be controlled on the fly using the built-in expression pedal, expression 1, that one up there, or an external expression 2. It's important to calibrate it all first, and there's a procedure for that. I won't bore you with it too much. Yeah, when you've ran through that, you can take these parameters and make them do lots and lots of other things. If we take a look at the expression screen, we've got expression 1 and 2. I'll choose it. We can go through functions. I won't spend long on this, but these are some of the parameters that you can control. We can calibrate it. There's also a merge function. Now, that is a very exciting function named merge. There it is. Merge allows you to simultaneously control any parameters from any effect block between any endpoints. So you could go from 30 to 70% of something in any direction, or from 70% to 30. Even as you press it down, it could go the wrong way. Using an expression pedal, basically. I'm not going to bore you with it. It would take too long, and there's no advantage in showing you more. All I can tell you is it makes the unit very, very flexible indeed. Now, we did take a look at the tuner earlier on. There's nothing really much in there to get your teeth into. It's just a tuner. What more could you ask? And lastly, we've got the looper. If I bring that up, well, I've done it before, I know. You've seen it before. But the looper, what's important about the looper in this unit is it's fully integrated. It's a loop station with up to 30 minutes of loop time. You press C and D at the bottom down, just off camera, to bring the looper up. And, well, really, apart from that, what can I say? Record volumes, control 1. Play volumes, control 2. Record and dub is foot switch A, which is down there below, not these at the top here. Play is foot switch B. Once is foot switch C. Stop and clear is foot switch D. You can see it there. We can undo and redo, foot switch control 1. We've got a reverse with this one. We've got a half speed with this one, and we've got an exit with that one, which sounds good to me, which is the way I'll be going anytime soon. The looper foot switch colours can be also customised. You can see some of them on screen now, but they're all set upable to be whatever you want them to be. Oh, very nice. That's one of the things about this unit. You can get multi-colours to whatever you fancy, you know. You can also assign a single control foot switch to enter or exit the looper via the control menu. Now, there is something else about this unit that you don't know about. Now, I'm only going to talk about this thing for a few seconds. The GE300 version 2 and above, and this is version 3.01 now, that firmware supports loading a thing called GNR-GIR, created in a package called GE Labs, or downloaded from MOOER Studio. Users can enjoy unique sample files uploaded by other users from across the globe, and indeed, if you load up the GE Labs, you can get online, sign up for it, and download all these other amps and speakers and things like that. Basically, they're free, I think. We'll be taking a quick look at that later, but I won't be spending very long on it. In any case, the MNRS, the MOOER Nonlinear Response Sample, that technology was developed by MOOER engineers based on their experience with sampling technology. I told you it was a MOOER thing, didn't I? Now MOOER has improved the MRNS engine in version 2 with better tone quality and dynamic response. It might even be newer than version 2 by now. Users create their own sample files with GE Labs, like I said, the free multi-effect mobile app from MOOER, and then download these files to the GE series devices. This is a GE series device. GNR and GIR are two different file formats of the MNRS files. The GNR files extension denote an amp, model file that is, while the GIR extension is for the cabinets. What gives it away is GIR for IRs, I guess. Yeah. And just worth noting, I think I did cover it earlier, but in this 300 there are 50 empty slots for loading the GNR files. In the amp module, to load the GIR file, please enter the cab module for loading. Yeah, what more can you say? Now when you've got all the slots full, with its 50 empty slots, it will slow the boot up time on this device to about 25-30 seconds, something like that. It's not rocket science, and it's not too long, is it? Okay, well that takes us through the hardware, and it's extremely comprehensive. If you saw the stuff I went through, but it's not comprehensive like, for example, I always give you the example of the hardest one I can think of. It's not complex like an Axe FX3. It's actually pretty straightforward. There's nothing that any reasonable ordinary guy couldn't master in that unit there. But if you want to go further, which you will, they also have this MOOER Studio for the GE300 that lets you, go and do a lot of stuff that you just did. But you're doing it on here, and you can mess about a bit more, I guess, if that's what you like to do. It's not, again, it's not rocket science, it's not difficult, but it's not as complex as some of these others that I've seen. Some of them can be really painful, really difficult to handle. This one, on the other hand, I think is, well, it's a bit like the easier stuff, a bit like the GT1000 core, sort of easier than the Pod Go, in my opinion, I think. And yeah, we're going to take a look at that next. That's the point we're at. We've covered the hardware and how you use the hardware if you don't have anything else. I think it's a good time to go and get up close with this and see the software, and then we can get out, have a look in the studio, get some sounds going, maybe do a tone capture of one of my amps that nobody's got, and it should all be fun from there. Yeah, so whatever. We're ready for the software. Okay, well, here we are looking at the studio software from MOOER Studio. Well, from MOOER. And if you go to MOOER Studio, spelled MOOER, MOOERstudio.com, I think it is, you can download this. Something like that. In any case, you'll find out where to get it from because it's all over the internet. It'll run on Windows 7 or above, and Mac OS 10.10 and higher. Yeah, blast it on there. Make sure you've got your pedal at hand because we'll need drivers and stuff like that. And let's go from there. All very nice and simple, really. Now then, let's look at this interface. As you can see here, it's specific for the GE300, and we've got a load of stuff to run through, which is very similar, really, in many ways to what we've already looked at. But we're going to talk about it anyway. You've got this system settings area across here. There it is. So we've got things like FX loop, the looper, I'm not going to do that. System, where we can go and change all those parameters that we were looking at before in an easier way, really. And we can change foot switch colours and all sorts. We'll come back to them. MIDI, control pedals, what you want on them, what you don't. Global EQ, we spoke about before. Expression pedals, beats per minute. You could type it in if you want. I'm not. And then we've got the particular preset that we're on. We're on 13B, Kali Studio, and I can assure you that is on the screen. Trails are off. Expression 1 merges, expression 2 is synth on pitch 1. We've got presets all the way down here, so you can actually, well really, for the first time actually get to look at all of them. And you can see there is, I think they go up to 36. Yeah, 35D, so that's 35 times 4, 140. And then from 36A all the way to 64D. All very boring really. Further down we've got send and return levels, the mix, loop mode, whether it's serial or parallel, output mode, mono or stereo or auto. And we've got the usual effect chain editing area that we had actually on the unit itself. So if I was to look at the compressor and click it, these are the parameters here. You can change the compressor just as we did before. You'll see the parameters change depending on which one it is. Yeah, very simple. Same with the wah. Take a look at the amp. Load of stuff on the amp, and to me, when you're coming down to the amp, really this you can get it a bit more, or I think you can. You might be able to find the other stuff tampering around on as we did, but who knows. But on this one we can do the usual stuff: bass, mid, treble, the gain, the mode. We've got an original mode, which is what the thing should sound like, or is distinct mode, if we click that, which will change the sound a little bit, among other things. But we can change tubes as well, and it's just a click away. That's the point about it. All very simple. If I wanted it to be a 6L6, well, there it goes. Preamp out, present, bias, we can adjust the bias all very easily, and we've got a master control there. So like I said, the amp's very easy to mess around with. And if we move across and look at the cabs, I guess it's all pretty similar really. There's a Mark 1B12. So the first mic's an SM57 and the second mic's an MLX 2001. There they are, of the choices we've got. Lots of choices for mics. We can move them off or on centre line, the distances and things like that. Low cut, high cut, early reflections, and the output, which we can also vary. So you can move across to other screens when it says you can, which, like everything else, it just sometimes you can get so many parameters on this stuff. It's more trouble than it becomes worth, if you want the truth. So I don't spend all day in this stuff. If you want to load your own IRs in there, well, that's okay. And that's all done from above. So let's go and have a look up there, see what we've got with this unit. Okay, let's import a cab. I'm going to choose 50 empty, that one there. And if you hit this little plus down at the bottom, like so, we can whip off into cabs. And there's a few I looked at earlier. And by the way, these are in the .wav file format. And they can be anything 44.1 kilohertz, 48, 88.2, or 96 kilohertz. And the sampling accuracy can be 8-bit, 16-bit, 24-bit, or 32-bit. So there's a lot to go at. So I'm going to just take one and pull it in. And import successful, as you can see. Your custom IR is now available. I'm going to say OK. So we can choose from all of them. There it is, all done, imported, all dusted. And the way you would go with the with the IR. How difficult does it have to be? Well, it doesn't. And of course, you could import and export. So if we take a look at export, these are for presets really. So we can import and export presets. Nice and easy. And of course you can do a backup like we showed originally. Recall a backup. Well, I'm not going to either. We've got an option button here. let it wake itself up. Where am I going? More audio, firmware update. I think I've already done that, thanks. So there's its option. Its option is send me to that screen. I'm not really happy because I don't want to go there, so let's not worry about that for now. Moving on further round, it's just the same as what we looked at before. It's all pretty simple and easy, and well, where can I go with this? There's not much to look at, is there? I can import or export a looper, or should I say a loop. I haven't got one. Now where I come from, that borders on being about it. Obviously if you go and look at the synth, you've got more to look at in this. Well, not more to look at, but you're looking at them in a different way. And to me it makes them, well, easier to handle. That's how I describe the synth and the rest. I'm not going to go through all the rest again, but do note that I'm working on version 3.0.1. But there it is. Not a lot to lose sleep over, and certainly an awful bunch simpler than most of the other stuff. You know, it's just simple. Now then, some people might be disappointed with what they've just seen by way of the MOOER Studio. You've seen some of the other stuff probably. The likes of the stuff used on the Helix, for example, XFX, well, you know what that's like. I mean, that takes it to the nth degree. But this software, well, a bit more basic, and I'm not against that. If it's simpler to use, you probably will use it. If it's more complex to use, you'll use it less. But what about the guys that actually wanted to get all their other stuff? I mean, to me, the software isn't even any better, and I'm not saying that this software is bad. The PodGo software, I'm not saying it's bad, but it's certainly no better than that, and in a lot of ways it's worse. So what they did more is they designed another application called GE Labs, and there it is on my computer there. You can't see much from there, but don't worry about that. You can go and search for it, GE Labs, you know. But GE Labs is an application that only runs on an Apple product. Now it can run on your phone if it's an Apple phone. It can run on an iPad if it's an Apple iPad. Oh, that's the only one, isn't it? But you'll get the idea that, well, basically, if you're not an Apple fanatic, you're not using GE Labs, which is a pity. And I would say to MOOER, I would say you're doing yourself a very big disservice when you're only really accounting for 10% of the users of cell phones when you only support Apple. The rest of the phones, the 90% of the other tablets and the other phones, are crying out for this software, but you don't do it. You're limiting your own market, which I think is a bit weird really, but I've seen it before. So I don't have a screen capture for the Apple. I'm not that modern here, but what I am going to do is just quickly zoom into it and just show you a few things that you'd be missing if you didn't have GE Labs. Yeah, so hold on. Now before we move on to this software here, one of the biggest problems, I think anyway, some other people might not, but is you do need an audio interface and a cable as needed to make this software work through your system so you can connect to everything and all the rest of it. You'll get the idea. Which is a bit weird really, because this thing here behind, the GE300, has an interface. It's got the ins, it's got the outs, and it's got the streaming to the computer. How does that work? Well, I don't know. I'll be doing some exercises on that to understand why you can't use that and why you've got to take a third-party interface to this software. It's all a bit strange, I think, don't you? So you should be pretty familiar with audio interfaces. You've got to have all the usual stuff. You've got to have an input for your guitar. Obviously, you can connect to either this unit here or to your iPhone. And usually you have, on the line outs, some monitors, yeah, so you can hear yourself. Or phones, of course, you could do it with phones. But the point is, you do need the interface, and if you haven't got an interface that's compatible, you need to go to their site to just confirm which ones are compatible. Then you're not going to be using this. But for the rest of us, here we go. One of the things when I first installed this software, and it isn't plugged into an interface because I don't intend to do that right now, but this thing was squealing through its speaker, and if you notice I've turned the volume down on that one. So if it does go ahead and squeal at some stage, don't blame me, blame the software. I just wanted to mention that. Yeah. On this quick demo, what I've done is turn the volume down on the unit. So if you see anything going here, trust me, you'll know what it is. So if we whiz back, choose any of these now. Oh, looks okay. So you've got a load of presets and a load of effects that you can move around. You see that? And we can just hit that to have a look at other amps, of which there are many. Okay. And there is an online section for this thing, and well, this is all interesting stuff. The fact is, if you go to the online thing, there are, well, thousands of presets, and that's the important bit about it, really, I think. The thousands of presets that can then be loaded into the GE300 one at a time, probably. I haven't checked, but you get the idea, don't you? Well, on this system, I have actually made an account for GE Labs. So my guess is we can go and have a look at these things down here. You've got this one at the bottom that's really for uploading, and this one for sharing, and so on and so forth. So let's have a quick look at the sharing one. I've never been here, by the way, before, so you can see, oops, I don't want to do that. You can see we've got preamp samples, drive samples, what they call an entire sample, which is the whole thing, and cab samples, of which there are thousands and thousands of these things. So don't you think that what you've got in your GE300 is it, because it's really far from it. In fact, in many ways this reminds me very much of well, Roland. Yeah, the tone share thing on Roland. Yeah, all very interesting though. And then we've got actual presets. You can see them here. There's even some Chinese ones or Japanese or wherever they are, doesn't really matter. They're in there, and you can pull them out and you can put them on your system, which I think is a good idea, don't you? Let's go back. Then you can upload, if you want to upload, you know, one of these presets that you've made, and you can share it with other guys, which I think makes sense, don't you? In any case, let's cancel that and go back. I hope it's sort of impressive. There's a lot more to it. Okay, let's have a quick run through some of the rest of the things. Well, it's pretty obvious if you're doing all this, you might want to set up some of the other stuff that's on it. And down in the bottom corner here, we've got a little section that looks after all the foot switches. So we can change loads of stuff. I can't show you too much because I've never been here, but you get the idea. You can do that. We've also got on the next thing, we've got this metronome, which is a pretty good looking metronome, where I come from at least. And then we've got a tuner, or a tuner. Yeah. Well, it's picking me up. Yeah, I'm flat out on, what am I on? Oh, I'm D sharp. Oh my God. And then as we move along, I've covered this one for uploading and this one for sharing, but you've got a basket here. Now, what the hell would you want a basket for? Well, no, not a basket case, a basket. You can actually buy packs from MOOER This top one, for example, it says infinite pack, unlimited and unlocked. Unlimited preset save slots, unlimited presets for unlimited music. Unlock this pack and never worry about having enough presets. Yeah, well, you can buy it. It's $49. I've never used it before. You've got a premium pack then. Preset save slot times 10. Then you've got a standard pack, a slot times 4, and a basic pack, a slot times 1. Well, what do you want for your $2.99? What? You want more? Well, I don't know. I don't know about that. All I can tell you is there is an awful lot in this application. It reminds me of so many others that I've seen out there in the marketplace. Really does. I'll just run through a few more things again. If we have a click here, you can see all these amps. But we can move down to compressors or wahs or modulation. Don't it remind you of the PodGo review I did recently with these sort of little graphics? Preamps. Lots of preamps to go at. Power amps. Oh, not quite. Oh, yeah, there's a few. Cabinets. Yeah. Cabs. There's probably millions of them on there online, but noise gates, EQs, delays and reverb. It's almost endless. A lot you can do with it. Now here's another thing that I haven't actually been and used, but it's in here, and I just want to cover it just for the sake of clarity and just to show people that this sort of stuff is available. Irrespective of what the studio software was offering and what it wasn't. Well, it was sort of offering this in a slightly different package. If you look here, this relates really to capturing, sampling, if you will. So we can sample a drive, a preamp, the entire rig, or a cab. Yeah, so if I click on one, there it is. That's how it's set up. Next. Don't even ask. Please play the guitar, adjust the connections, do it basically. Next. It's whizzing along. Output's too low. I'm going to continue anyway. No, I'm not. Let's go back. But you get the idea. That's the important thing. And it's probably the same with the preamp yet. Or the entire rig even. Or the cab. So we can create our own IRs and all the rest of it. Or just as importantly, we can capture somebody else's, which I thought was interesting. Now it's highly likely that this application does lots more, but I haven't seen anybody do a full review of everything with the GE300, including the MOOER Studio and this application, you know. So I just thought I'd have a run through that and get you up to speed as it is here in April 2021. Yeah, basically it's a holiday weekend and nothing else to do. The only problem is, up to now, this has taken me about 2 weeks and I'm still going. Oops, I forgot to show you the system settings. We'll just have a quick look at that. See what we can get at. So we've got the latency we can change. You wouldn't want to be on 256 probably. Gestures, input channel, stereo output, yes or no. Run in the background, yes or no. Screen always on. Display CPU utilization, yes or no. Oops. And we can have it in English. And 3 others that I can't quite read. More about that a little bit later. We've got a sample guide which takes you through it. MIDI learning, MIDI settings, redeem codes for whatever that is. GE Labs FAQs about terms and conditions and version. Well, if we just have a look at the version, it's 2.28, which was released about 3 months ago from when I'm making this video. So that was the one of the last ones. And if you go on the GE Labs FAQs, I'm sure that there'll be piles of stuff to help you make this app work. You should take a look at it if you bought the GE300, and yeah, you could spend months on it, and that's part of the problem. You don't really want to spend months. What you want to do is play, right? Just one last little comment about this. Remember when we were talking way back about MNRS? That was profiles and sample types. Well, this is really what it uses in this section for this capturing. I just thought I'd mention that. Now, one more thing, as well as the GE Labs. Well, we can move that out the way. You've seen that now, basically. Let's just get rid of that. Because if you're somebody that doesn't need every last graphic, but you'd prefer to have the presets, you can actually go to the MOOER site, moorestudio.com, click on GE300, and you can actually download presets from there. You've got to have an account, by the way, so that's important. But once you've got the account, you can come in here. Let's just have a look. Take a look at that one there. Final Cut, David Gilmour. Click it, and what will happen is it will open up on a screen that you can just basically click there and download. Now, I've already downloaded it just so I can show you that. It's sitting there. Yeah, 61A Final Cut Solo. And what I'm going to do is just whiz you back to that unit there, unload it up, so you can get an idea that they can be downloaded without any aggro. Okay, I'm going to import the file I downloaded from MOOER Studio. Here we go. This is Final Cut Solo 61A, that's what it's called. It's going to go in 38A for me. David Gilmour, and it's as easy as this. And that was it. That's what you get. Front to back, job done. Yeah, well, I guess it's all in there. It's as easy as that. Now, from what I can see, all these presets in here, and there are buckets of them, and on they go. There's so many of them, and from what I can see, they're free, like I said. So yeah, there's the Final Cut Solo at 38A, which God knows what it sounds like, but when we do actually play this, which is coming up soon, a bit further down in the video, after the conclusions and the rest, you're going to be able to hear it. So that's the MOOER website. I'd recommend anybody that's got a GE300 goes and does all that stuff. It can't be easier than having audio that also other guys have set up and said, wow, this is perfect, you know. People do that. It saves faffing there with little knobs and things for, well, weeks on end, depending on which one of these types of units you buy. Okay, well, that's been a massive run through of everything I can find on the MOOER GE300. And of course, when you get to this point, there's a little bit of summing up the good, the bad, and the ugly. And the ugly, well, we need to talk about the good and the bad. So I want to consider a few things that I've looked at as I've been down this very, very long road up to now, and there's still plenty to come yet, and presets and that sort of thing. Well, what do I like? Well, I like the £550 for a twin processor floor pedal that's a simulator. It's an awesome price, $700, give or take. You might even get it a bit cheaper, and if you find one second hand, like I've said before in this video, what a bargain. Nothing comes near it really for that. And while it can't do everything, it does everything that most people would want that play guitar rather than twiddle with knobs. I think that's very, very pertinent. I like how it's made of metal. It's metal underneath as well. The twin processor things keeps me reeling along, but I love the metal. I like the layout in here as well, and how you can just flip with these buttons from one thing to another. It's just so easy just so easy to go wherever you want and to control whatever you want as well. Fantastic device, lots of I/O, I like that, but not too much. There's just enough that you could ask for, if you get me. And I also like the synth. That's a useful thing. There are some things I don't like, but we'll come to those in a moment. The tone capture I also like because previously, I mean, you were really, back in the day, you were on Kemper or nothing. Now you've got that neural networks thing that's come along, and that does capturing and all the rest. But that's sort of £1,400, and that makes you consider that you can have almost 3 of these for the price of one of the neural networks things. And if you think it's that much better, some people don't. Well, go and buy one, or have 3 of these, or have 1 of these and 2 other items that could be useful to you. So lots of ways of looking at this. So I like the tone capture. I like the manual, although it's not bad. It's not bad. It's a long manual if you go all the way with it. Coming to get me. I think summing up the likes, you're getting quality, you're getting power, you're getting a simple to use interface without all the argy-bargy of having to run all that other software, because you can do without it, for the most part at least. Is simplicity, and yeah, that's always a good thing in these devices. What don't I like? There's a lot of things I don't like. I'm not too happy with, I think the basic MOOER Studio software is a little bit basic compared to even the Pod Go. It's a little bit basic. It's not graphic enough really for what you might expect. What you might expect, not me necessarily, but you know, I'm looking at it overall, and I think that that software could be updated. Now, I know that they've taken the GE Labs and they've produced GE Labs, and GE Labs' first negative is it only runs on Apple. That's a big mistake. You're limiting your own market there. But I think also that it's disappointing on the Studio software, because that GE Labs really should be incorporated into Studio and dump the GE Labs. What are you messing up? I do like how you've got separate actual knobs rather than faffing around in the software. You know what that's like. You've got actual knobs here. I've got to turn around because I can't even see them with the light. Output master, XLR master and headphone master. Yeah, you can see how bad that text really is. It's frustrating. Well, what else don't I like? I hate, and I mean dislike rather than hate. You've got white characters on a silver board. And when you look on the internet for this device, you see this device dark, like a GT100, that dark. But in reality, it's basically like the colour of stainless steel, and white on stainless steel, or any type of steel, doesn't work. Who on earth come up with that idea? No, that's a bad idea right from the offset, and it's still a bad idea today, nearly 2 years later from launch. What else don't I like? Well, there isn't that much I don't like. I think them funny little plastic caps that you put on these switches are absolutely a waste of time and effort and money. Yeah. I could go on with loads of more plus and minuses, but I'm not going to. So, where does it leave me with this product? Well, it leaves me with a floor pedal that's entirely built around the idea of being able to use it rather than faffing around. I love this stuff, how easy it is to do with the hardware. The software, it's still easy, but in some ways it's slightly too easy. It almost feels like it's lacking. So I'm moving on now from that to, let's think about score. Well, how would I rate this thing? You know, out of 10. Well, I have to say this, it's going to be a 9 out of 10, not a 10 out of 10. And the singular reason it isn't 10 out of 10 is really relating to the software. It's not the downloads, none of that. It's not the operation of this, none of that. It's not the quality. It comes back to that software where they go and develop GE Labs and they develop MOOER Studio, and they really should be one. And if MOOER ever sees this video, you ought to really seriously consider that. You've got all the data online, you could do a merge job one way or another. So if you want a 10 out of 10, go and look at your software. Well, I'm nearly at the end. Like I said, I could go on all day, all day about the product. And I could talk about other features and benefits or problems, so on and so forth. But that's it. That's the gist of it. We're going to go and hear it now in a studio environment. And I'll probably capture one of my amps or something like that. You'll hear it played to a track and some samples that as they come, because I think that's the best way, bearing in mind that the tone captured a lot of them are. Yeah, it should all be very interesting. Don't forget to visit www.tonymackenzie.com if you get a chance or time, or loads of stuff on there if you've never been there. You could be on that for a week. But if you've been there, it hasn't been updated for a while, but maybe one of these days. While I'm waiting for equipment. That's another problem, that gear just doesn't arrive. I've got a review here on a pedal that was launched 2 years ago. I mean, most reviews were about a year ago. And sometimes that makes it so that people don't come back and have a look at new reviews of it. And I think that's a mistake, because this review's looked at all the modern stuff like the firmware and the manual and the software and all the other stuff that wasn't around when it was launched. And you notice all them guys that did it back then never come back and review it again, do they? Ha! Says everything really, doesn't it? So, playing's coming up now. All you got to do is sit back, have a watch, have a listen, and I hope that this video, because it's been an intensive video, helps someone to go and decide on whether you're buying a GE300, because I think that it's a bit dearer than a Podgo. I've got one down there, and it's a bit cheaper than a GT1000 core. That's got its advantages. The Podgo's got some advantages, software related, I think. But this is a very capable device, and yeah, we'll leave it at that for now. Now get out of here.